So this week, Agatha All Along, this episode was all about Billy's origin, and it was, for the most part, a good origin story, I think. I'm still kind of debating how I feel about it because they did do the whole Billy Maximoff reincarnated into Billy Kaplan, but they did it a little bit later than what happened in the comic books. So in the comics, Billy Kaplan is just Billy Maximoff. That's just like his soul was there from the beginning. Whereas in here, Billy Kaplan dies, and then Billy Maximoff enters his body and kind of assumes his role. And I know that sounds a lot creepier than the way that the show portrayed it, because it's not like something that happened intentionally. It just sort of happened to coincide, which I think this has a lot of explaining to do, because there are some bits of that origin that I'm still kind of confused on. For example, both Billy Maximoff and Billy Kaplan have a lot of shared similarities, and obviously nothing in this world is a coincidence. In the world of Agatha Long is a coincidence, and so there has to be a reason why they were already so similar, and why the accident happened at the exact same moment that the hex kind of went away. So I definitely think that and it's hinted towards when Lily is reading his palm that they have two split lives, and so I just want a little bit more clarity on that, because I feel like right now it feels so icky that Billy's just sort of in the body of somebody else and utilizing it. It's kind of the same way that I felt about what happened with Steve in Wonder Woman 1984, which I don't think anyone quite liked. So I think this whole possession thing feels very icky. It feels, one might say, against the rules. And this is something that was like a big point in Multiverse of Madness, that you can't inhabit a corpse. And that's essentially what he's doing here. It's a little bit different because it's a fresh corpse, so I guess that makes it okay. But I do think that I'm going to get back to this point of it being against the rule a little bit later. But first off, my overall thoughts on this episode was that it was pretty good. I think that Joe Locke had to do a lot of heavy lifting because he wasn't really supported with a cast of characters that we all know and love, that we like their personalities. It was just him, and so he did a lot of heavy lifting to keep us engaged. When his origin story, for someone who is familiar with the comics or who just follows the theories of Marvel, knows what to expect, so it can be a little bit dull, just kind of it's important information to get through for sure, especially for people who don't know anything. But for us that do, it feels a little repetitive and like, do we really have to do this? But yes, we do have to do this for the sake of other people to join our side and become really big Wiccan fans. So I think that he did a good job holding his own. But it wasn't until Agatha showed up, Catherine Hahn, that the show kind of jolted back alive and got that spark that it had the entire first 5 episodes. And so I think that just goes to show how powerful Catherine Hahn is in this role, that this show is hers through and through. Everyone else is great, but she kind of is the lifeline of this show. But getting back to his origin story, Billy Kaplan's motivation to go down the witch's road, as we learn in this episode, is to find Tommy, his brother. And a lot of people were disappointed because he didn't want to find his mom. But guys, come on. We all know, even Scarlet Witch herself would want him to find his brother. I think that's just very touching, and it makes perfect sense. And it does make me wonder how they're going to do that. Is Tommy going to be introduced in this show? Surely he is. And how will that work? In the comic books, again, they kind of didn't know the connection. They just knew that they looked similar because they were twins. But here, I'm wondering how it's going to work, since they're obviously not going to be twins. At least not physically. Maybe. I don't see them like doing a double Joe Locke for both roles. I would not like that as well. But it would be interesting to see him try to find a body for the soul of his brother, because it would mirror what Wanda, his mom, did for Vision, and kind of building that body for his soul. So I think that would be great parallels to have. I do think that it's interesting how all of the witches have just been drawn to him, and it's something that's talked about in the second episode, how you are kind of drawn to witches around you in your area. But you have Lilia, who is at his bar mitzvah, prior to Billy Maximoff entering Billy Kaplan's body, and she can tell that something's going to happen. She even sees Billy Maximoff in her little divinity ball. And I think that one of the twists that I didn't see coming is that she is the one who played put the sigil on Billy. And it was before there was anything to sigil, really. So I think that that's really interesting. I want to know why. Was it a protection thing? Was she scared of someone utilizing because she saw how much potential he had? I'm not quite sure. But I do think that this solves one of the issues, or one of the seeming plot holes that people had, which is, how did Wanda not know that her son was literally a town over, and she went into the entire multiverse? She almost destroyed so many different worlds just to find her kids, when one of them was like a couple miles away from her to begin with. Well, the sigil is the answer. The sigil is what prevented her from being able to feel him. And Agatha says something at the end of this episode, whereas now that the sigil's broken, every witch with a heartbeat knows who he is. And so this was used kind of as to punish Wiccan because he seemingly killed off Jen and Lilia. But I think it could also hint to the fact that if Wanda is somehow still alive, she's now able to feel her son. And I feel like even just a hint of anything, Wanda she can come back from the dead for her kids. That's just like the mother that she is. And so I think that that was a very interesting touch. We also find out in this episode that the black heart that Lilia had written on the original list of the witches was referring to Wiccan, particularly because his boyfriend sends him a text that says, "You're my heart," and the heart emoji is black. He's also wearing a little black heart earring, which I had always noticed, and I was like, oh, that's cute. But I never really processed it until this episode. So that was a very interesting touch. But yes, going back to the witches in his life, we see that at the scene of the crime when Billy Kaplan dies in that car accident and Billy Maximoff is replaced, we see Alice as the first police to come on the scene, which is really interesting. It's kind of also sad to see how her life changed in those 3 years, which they talk about a little bit. Jen is also one of his favorite, makeup YouTubers, which I think is really interesting. And finally, we find out how he knows about Agatha. And when they were in that parking garage and they said they were going to meet with someone from Westview, I was like, no way. It can't be. It's not going to be. And then we got Ralph Bohner'd, but this time in a good way, because it was a nice little surprise to see him there. It kind of redeemed it a little bit. Not really. The scene really didn't deliver any new information to us, but it did deliver new information to Wiccan that set him on his path to finding Agatha. And I loved his Google search and finding out that Agatha was the real Jolene. That was a very funny touch, and I really do like that. And then we got to see a recap of episode 1, but this time from Joe Locke's, aka Wiccan, aka Billy Maximoff, aka Billy Kaplan's perspective. And I did think that this part ran a little bit long, mainly because we've already seen a lot of this episode is like, we already know this information. We're just kind of going through the motions a little bit. But it was funny. There was some particular moments when Catherine Hahn goes up to Joe Locke and she's like, "You don't want to poke the bear," and he's like trying so hard not to crack. That was really funny. When Agatha is chasing Teen, and you see that it's a lot more anticlimactic than what it looked like in the first episode. And then finally the line where Joe Locke is being tossed into the closet, he's like, "I don't want to be in the closet again." Very funny. One thing that kind of happens after this moment is we kind of fast forward through moments that we've seen in the show with Teen revealing who he is, and I understand, like, there's pre-Agatha Teen and the whole Billy origin story that I understand. Then there's the Billy that we've met on episode 1, really more like episode 2 to 5. But then there's some little disconnect as to, like, why did he lie about wanting powers? It was the best way to explain it for me would be, I think that there was a lot that happened in this episode that happened so fast. That was very convenient, that I wish that instead of having one episode focus on Billy's origin story, that we would have had a couple of sequences peppered throughout the last couple of episodes. I think that would have made a lot more sense. But again, we kind of just want to get through this so that we can get through the exciting part. And so that being said, I don't really have a whole lot to complain about with that regard. I did really love the scenes at the end with Catherine Hahn and Joe Locke. after all, essentially all cards are on the table. They all know who they are. And Catherine Hahn she's kind of reverting a little bit back to being a villain, which pushes kind of teen to go to the opposite direction. And that's a really good balance that they have. They're continuing on the road together, but they don't trust each other. But yet, Catherine Hahn was real, like in her own evil way, was trying to make him feel comfortable about the actions that he has made throughout the show, whether consciously, unconsciously, whatever that may be. But she does bring up that, again, that this is against the rules, but it's fine because that's what witches have been doing to survive. They've been breaking rules. They've been, just doing what it takes when the world is against them. So that was surprisingly touching. So I'm really thinking that there's going to be kind of a teacher-mentor situation happening where Agatha potentially could train Wiccan in some ways. But again, where is this all leading to? I'm really not sure. I'm still trying to figure out where are the other witches, because I know that Jen and Lilia can't be dead. Agatha survived that, so surely they can as well. Most importantly, where the F is Rio? We haven't seen Rio this entire episode. We didn't see her at the end of the last episode. And if you know the rumors of who she is potentially playing, her absence is a lot more jarring, because clearly she would be aware of what happened with Billy Kaplan and Billy Maximoff. And the fact that she didn't do anything about it is very interesting, and I don't quite know. Maybe this somehow escaped her radar because it was so right at the moment, but I don't think so, because she's surrounding all of these moments, and so it's very interesting. But yes, that was kind of my thoughts / recap / breakdown of episode 6 of Agatha All Along. Again, we're barreling towards the end. We have like 3 more episodes left, and I'm very excited. Are you excited? I'm sure you are. Do you have any theories? Do you know what's up with Rio? Do you know anything? Or do you know? Yes, if you know, please let me know, because I want to be in the know. That's probably the word "no" has been used in a couple seconds. But yes, I would love to hear your thoughts. So feel free to leave a comment and leave a theory, because I collect theories like infinity stones.